Okay, guys, so let's talk about conflict and war. This is two very important issues in today's international agenda. But we're going to go very briefly on the concept of war, since I just want you to have like a general vision of a few concepts regarding to war and conflict, and most importantly, about examples. And to have you done this, I really would like you to take notes or try to make like a conceptual map so that you have a clear example and the concept, of course, of war. Okay, so the definition for war is it's the most violent form of conflict, and it refers to organized armed violence aimed at a specific social group in the pursuit of an objective. So, having that said, let's move forward to presenting the main categories of war. The main categories of war are hegemonic war, total war, limited war, civil war, and guerrilla war. With the names, you can figure out the definition. When you say hegemonic, you're saying that there's only one power, that it's ruling a whole confrontation, and perhaps it might not be one power, but it's like one that involves a lot of other powerful states. Total war, it's like its name says, it's like full contact and full conflict, direct conflict, while limited is the other way around. It goes in and out, a very easy, not easy, but direct strikes and return back to your base. And then you have the civil war, which is pretty clear, and the guerrilla war, that by the name it says it also. So let's go and talk about hegemonic war. Is the war over the control of the entire world order. It wants to control or change the international system as a whole. So it might also be known as world war or global war and general war. And the most clear examples are World War I and World War II. So, do you think it had happened again without destroying civilizations? I really think that if we have a World War III, civilizations might be destroyed since the nuclear weapons might be in use. So that's the pretty basics of hegemonic war. Now, total war, it is the war for one state that is waged to conquer and occupy another one. So the main goal when you have this sort of war is to reach the capital of your enemy and force him to surrender, and so that you can replace the government or control it. One of the clearest and most important historical examples is the Napoleonic Wars in Europe, which happened in 1803 and 1815. And one of the most recent wars that we've had was the one against Iraq. It was a coalition and an invasion performed by the United States. It's Operation Iraqi Freedom, and like you know, it had the objective of finding nuclear weapons, and of course ended up overthrowing the president of the country, Saddam Hussein. In limited war, what you're trying to do when you have a limited war, or the main objective is to make like some military actions and then try to make them surrender and occupy your enemy. But you don't really go full contact. You bomb or you have a quick incursion by land, but then you return once again to your military base, so you don't stay really on the country. And well, I have one specific example here. It's called Operation Desert Storm. I think there's a movie about this. Operation Desert Storm was what was known as the Persian Gulf War II, and that's when the Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein he trying to invade and occupy the neighboring country of Kuwait. So it happened in August of 1990. In some countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, they called the United States to ask for help because they thought it might even escalate into a bigger issue. So the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq called the attention of the Security Council, which told Saddam Hussein to leave and to cease fire in Kuwait, which he didn't. So the US, under the code name of Operation Desert Storm, went full contact for 42 days, and it had some attacks by air mainly. And then after those 42 days, Iraq, under the rule of Saddam Hussein, ended up surrendering and leaving the country on its own. So that was like a quick defeat, and this is an example of limited war. Another example, very quickly, is the one done by Abkhazia and South Ossetia, which are two regions inside of Georgia that want to be separated or independent from Georgia since they don't consider themselves to be of this nationality. And actually, Georgia doesn't want to let them be free, of course, because that's part of their territory. But there's a funny thing here, a weird thing actually, is that Russia is really supporting these two nations in their independence against Georgia. Now, on the other hand, we have civil wars, which is a war between factions that are living inside a state, and that they might be trying to create or prevent a new government for the entire state, or at least some territorial part of it. The greatest example of a current civil war, it's the Syrian Civil War in 2011. Under the regime of Bashar al-Assad, and the Egypt Civil War, which is still not very silent since they cannot find themselves a proper way to be governed by a president that could represent all the nations inside of Egypt. And actually, it goes way back, the Egypt Civil War in 2011, when they were trying to overthrow the regime of Hosni Mubarak, and they were successful at doing it, but later on it escalated into a full contact civil war because the one that was in power did not represent the interests of some parts of the country, of the population of the country. I really recommend you to watch this documentary. You can find it in YouTube when you type The Square, but you can also find it on Netflix. And I think it will give you quite a great understanding of the Civil War and what happened later after Hosni Mubarak was overthrown. Guerrilla War is the last one of this category, and it includes certain kinds of civil wars, but it's warfare without a front line. So it's basically like a ghost. You don't really know where they're hiding, but you know they're fighting, okay? So the purpose is not to directly confront the enemy, but rather to harass and punish and to limit its operation and try to liberate or free territory from its control. And one of the biggest example is FARC, which is Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, and it's an organization that have existed since the 60s, and it's trying to create a more socialist state in Colombia. Okay, so these are the main categories so far, and I really hope that you have find a very general perception on it and some examples